We've got to debunk some more media myths today. You have probably seen headlines going around, especially on Instagram, saying that Trump is now letting hospitals allow women to die. Women who need these life-saving abortions, we hear, are now going to bleed out and die because of Trump's draconian and cruel anti-abortion policies. And a lot of you have been sending me messages asking me, okay, what is true about this? Whenever you see headlines like this, you should have a little alarm that goes off in your head that says that's probably not true. When anything sounds too good or too bad to be true, you should ask yourself, but is it really true? And it is almost always the case when it comes to pro-abortion propaganda that the story that you are reading, that those little pro-abortion influencers and accounts are pushing, that it's just not true, that they're leaving facts out, they're distorting what's really going on, they're taking one fact, they're amplifying it and distorting or ignoring the rest of it. This story that Trump is overturning some policy by the Biden administration that protected women and now women aren't going to be protected. Let us talk about what is actually happening. So the Trump administration has reversed a Biden policy regarding hospital emergency abortion requirements. This is according to Life News and the Associated Press. So we've got a pro-life entity resource, and then we've also got a very pro-abortion left-wing resource that we're getting this information from. The Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act, which is also known as EMTALA or EMTALA, was passed in 1986, requires hospitals to provide necessary emergency care, including for pregnant women, to stabilize serious medical conditions. The law's initial intent was to ensure patient access to emergency medical care and to prevent the practice of patient dumping. So patient dumping is where uninsured patients are transferred from private to public hospitals without consideration of their medical condition or stability for transfers. They are transferring solely for financial reasons. The law includes specific references to pregnant women and unborn children throughout, particularly in transfer decisions where doctors must consider, quote, the increased risks to the individual and, in the case of labor, to the unborn child from affecting the transfer, and requirements for hospitals to provide treatment that minimizes the risks to the individual's health and, in the case of a woman in labor, the health of the unborn child. So, as I said, this was from 1986. And so what do the headlines mean when they're talking about Biden and Trump? So the Biden administration issued a guidance on this law in 2022 that interpreted EMTALA, that law, as requiring hospitals to perform abortions in emergency rooms, even in states with pro-life laws, if deemed necessary to stabilize a pregnant woman's condition. They argue that the law gives federal authority to override state abortion bans. So you can see, if you're familiar at all with how the left interprets these kind of healthcare laws, you can see the problem right away, because how the left interprets the health or life of the mother or the stability of the mother is not that the woman's life actually has to be at risk. They refer to a Supreme Court case called Doe v. Bolton, where health and life of the mother is defined as not only the physical health of the mother, but the mental health of the mother, the financial situation of the mother, the familial circumstances of the mother. And that is why you have, for example, a law in the state of New York, which says through all 9 months, abortion is legal. And after viability, so typically around 24 weeks, the abortion has to be for, quote unquote, the life or health of the mother. Again, life or health is interpreted as virtually for any reason. As long as the mom and the doctor say, well, yeah, I'm not really feeling good. This doesn't make me happy. This is making me feel mentally unwell. It could even be, well, my boyfriend broke up with me, or my family isn't supporting me. So at 36 weeks gestation, if the woman finds herself in really dire circumstances, she can, in several states, including in the state of New York, abort that child. There is no reason, particularly after viability, after that baby can survive outside of the womb, which can be as early as 19 weeks, for that baby to die. It's never necessary to purposely kill the child in order to save the life of the mother. If the mother's life, physical life, actually has to be saved and she cannot remain pregnant anymore or she will die, then that baby should be delivered. And if it's after a time when that baby is viable so that baby can survive outside of the womb, then life-saving care should be given to that baby to try to protect and preserve that baby's life and save the mother's life. Now, if it's before that, if the mother is suffering some kind of condition where she cannot be pregnant anymore, her life absolutely matters. She is just as much made in the image of God as that baby inside the womb. That mother's life should be attended to, and that baby should be delivered, even knowing that the tragic outcome of that baby being delivered early will be that baby's death. That is not the same thing as poisoning that baby. That's not the same thing as intentionally dismembering that baby. And remember, all pro-life laws across the states actually define abortion as the intentional killing of the child using a different kind of chemical or instrument. So saving the mother's life by early delivery, whether or not that is pre or post viability, is the option for trying to save that woman's life and, if possible, protecting that child's life. So just understand that there's no real scenario that requires the poisoning or dismembering or any other kind of intentionally brutally abusing and murdering that unborn child. Just understand that. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to have MD after your name to understand the logic there. And by the way, I've talked to a lot of doctors about this. I'm not just coming up with this on my own. And we will link the episode that I did on this particular subject with an OBGYN before the election. So this was a Biden-era reinterpretation of a 1986 law that said hospitals, you have to provide an abortion. And this obviously created a lot of conscience issues, a lot of conflict with state laws, but also a lot of religious liberty issues when you have emergency room doctors or, say, a Catholic hospital that doesn't perform abortions at all, saying, well, now you are required to do so if the quote unquote undefined stability of the mother depends upon it. So it was actually the Biden administration that was infringing upon people's rights here. It's not the Trump administration doing that. Trump administration rescinded this 2022 guidance in a statement, arguing it wrongly turned emergency rooms into abortion clinics by forcing doctors to perform elective abortions, which is true because a woman could come in and say, I have to have an abortion. I don't feel stable, or I'm not feeling good, or whatever. And instead of a doctor saying, you know what, we can help you in different ways, or here's where you need to go, let me give you other resources, they would be required by the Biden administration to perform an abortion. So the Trump administration's policy clarifies that EMTALA does not mandate abortions beyond what is necessary for emergency care, aligning with the law's intent to protect both the mother and the unborn child. So they're just saying, look, you have to look after both. Whereas the Biden administration was saying, you don't have to look after the unborn child. You don't have to consider the life of the unborn child at all. If you need an abortion, you got to get an abortion and you have to do it. And the Trump administration is saying no. In its letter rescinding Biden's guidance, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, also known as CMS, which provides oversight of hospitals, said it will continue to enforce the federal law that, quote, protects all individuals who present to a hospital emergency department seeking examination or treatment, including for identified emergency medical conditions that place the health of a pregnant woman or her unborn child in serious jeopardy. And I just want to take a moment. It might seem like a little thing, but the choice of words here that is so distinct from the Biden administration when we read the words pregnant woman or unborn child. Nowadays, language indicates your belief system. It indicates your worldview. And you could argue that it always has, but at one point, we all had the belief that only women could get pregnant. We all had the knowledge of that reality. And we all acknowledged that the baby inside the womb was indeed an unborn child, whether or not you believed in someone's legal right to abort that child. But the Biden administration would use euphemisms and lie to cover up that reality. They would say pregnant patient or pregnant individual. They wouldn't say unborn child. They might say fetus, or even more euphemistically and deceptively, they would say terminate the pregnancy. You can't even acknowledge the baby inside the womb. That's also another tactic of toxic empathy, that kind of sleight of hand and that linguistic manipulation that a lot of people don't even notice, but it slowly over time reshapes your conscience into latching on to the secular progressive idea that abortion is right and compassionate. So I just praise God yet again that Trump won. And I know it's only 4 years, and I know America and certainly eternity does not live or die or rise or fall based on who is in office. But can we just appreciate this, that this is such a stark difference in reality versus falsehood, and light versus darkness in the Trump administration versus what would have been the Kamala Harris administration? We would have seen abortion radicalism in ways that we can't even comprehend right now.